It is Wednesday, my dudes, and you know what that means. It is time once again to revisit Adventure Woods, the theme park that I'm building in Planet Coaster called Adventure Woods. And I was a bit torn about how to divvy up the footage for the next couple of episodes. We got a lot of things to do. We got a lot of ground to cover, and I kind of took a bit of a haphazard approach when it came to actually building everything. I didn't really build things in a chronological order. Well, I kind of did. Basically, to summarize what's going to happen in this episode and next episode, we are going to build a train station in this episode and start another train station in this episode. And then next episode, I go on a massive meander and build a brand new roller coaster, restaurant area, etc. And then finish the other station that I start in this episode. So you see what I mean? It's kind of like, it would have been nice to get everything in one episode, but the episode would have been like an hour and a half long. And that is just too long. My cutoff point for these Planet Coaster videos is an hour for a couple of reasons. First of all, I just don't think that you guys want to sit through more than an hour of Planet Coaster content on this channel. And secondly, I can't talk, for that long. I mean, you guys know I struggle to fill the commentary space for like half-hour episodes of Adventure Woods, let alone an hour and a half. So this is what you get. I think the longest Planet Coaster video I've ever done was probably like, I think it's like an hour. I don't think I've ever made a Planet Coaster video that is significantly longer than the 1 hour mark. I'm pretty sure there are 1 or 2 episodes of Velocity Lake that come very close. The ones that spring to mind would be the episode where I built the what was it even called? Pulsar, the hypercoaster. I'm pretty sure that had a couple of long ones, but for the most part, I try and keep things under an hour. 30 minutes or 25, 30 minutes is the sweet spot, but I try and keep the videos to have some sort of consistency to them. So like this episode, we build a roller coaster. This episode, we build a hotel. This episode, we build a train station. That's what I try and go for when I'm trying to divvy up the footage into episodes. And that's leads me back to the initial point I made in this commentary, and that was I struggled. But I hope it's turned out okay for you guys. By the way, what I'm doing here, I didn't even cover. I just decided to build a custom sign for the wooden coaster, which I've now called Wild Woods. I guess it's a fitting name, right? But for the most part, I just chose that name because the character count of this name perfectly fits on this little tunnel that encapsulates the brake run. But I do think Wild Woods is a very fitting name for this coaster. I've said before on this series now, so I won't dwell on it too much, but basically my thesis when building this roller coaster layout was that the roller coaster train disappears into the the proverbial wild woods. It disappears. Whoa, where's the train going? It's going into the wild woods. So I think the name works to an extent, but yeah, I'm not going to dodge around the fact that the primary reason I chose that name was because it fit really nicely on that tunnel. Cool, and now we're just doing some lighting. So how far are we into this hour and a half commentary? Joking, of course. It's only 30. I think it's just past the 30-minute mark. It's probably like 33 minutes. Not quite sure. If it's 33 minutes dead, I nailed it. Probably isn't. But yeah, is there anything I need to discuss? Just frantically glancing at the screen. I'm trying to think about what I've done so far in this video, but I don't think there is. It's just like, I have moments where I just do various bits of admin duty, so just doing a few lights and signages and things, and it's like, how do I put that into a video gracefully? So I sort of just shove it at the beginning of a random episode and say, hey, I've made this sign, let's move on now to this. Hey, it's the construction of the train station, which I think is going to be the primary focus of this episode, the construction of this station here. And I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. I was sort of torn between a couple of things when it came to designing the train stations for Adventure Woods. First of all, I've always liked the idea of having transit in theme parks, but I don't think I've ever managed to successfully pull it off. I've always really struggled to gracefully integrate it into the park. The last time I tried to do a railway that took guests around the theme park was in, not Velocity Lake, Neptune Park, and I guess it worked. It achieved what I wanted it to achieve, but I wasn't very happy with how it turned out, to be honest. So I feel like this is the first time I've done transit inside a park's boundaries that actually works. I add that qualifier because, and I've mentioned this again before, so I don't know why I'm spending so long describing it, but things like Neptune Park, Mistletoe Peak, and Velocity Lake as well, I had like a monorail that went off the map just to kind of serve as an illusionary means for the guests to arrive at the theme park. So that transit always worked out quite well, but I've never managed to pull off kind of effective intra-park transit. I think the only times I've really tried it were in what's it called? Crimson Tower and Neptune Park. I don't think I've done it. Oh, I did it in Mirror Lake as well. But the execution in all of those cases, I just think was subpar. This one, I'm really happy with. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. One of the downsides, actually, immediately starts talking about the negatives. One of the downsides is that I feel like the layout of the railway did sort of restrict me a little bit in terms of the actual park layout, which I guess was the intention. You know, I didn't want this park to just end up being this massive sprawling thing like Velocity Lake ended up being, and I wouldn't know when to stop and how to call it a day. So having a railway that sort of encapsulated the plot of land for the park, my intention was that it would okay, this is going to help me restrict the scope of this park, and it's going to make it easier to plan when the park's going to be done. But in the end, I ended up, deciding, actually, I really like playing Planet Coaster. I'm just going to carry on playing it. And then trying to expand the park beyond the boundaries of this railway was quite challenging. So, yeah, it was a blessing and a curse, or it was a good thing, but also a bad thing. I don't know. Somewhere in that sentence, I probably said the right thing, didn't I? Here, you'd see me building the interior. It leaves a lot to be desired. I know the interior of the station isn't super great. I know it's very, it's just good enough where it serves the purpose that I wanted it to serve, and then after that, it's fine. That's not like the animatronic man, I should say, isn't a stand-in for a real get a staff member. That's always going to be an animatronic. So in the real theme park, that would still be an animatronic. I have used those animatronics to serve as real people for this park, for example, in the ticket booths. But in this instance, that would just be an animatronic, because this is just a free piece of transit in the park, and it just adds to the immersion that this is like an old-timey station. And yes, that's the muse I went with. This is like an old-timey British steam train railway station, and I like to think I did a pretty good job with it. I don't think I based it on any specific station layout. I think I Googled a few, Wales, the country, has a few little quaint train stations that I probably looked at on Google Images to base some of the or to kind of use as a reference point when building this building. And also model railways are a really good source of reference. Well, model railway buildings, I should say, are really good points of reference for building things in Planet Coaster, because Planet Coaster's scaling is a little bit iffy. Things are a little bit too big to be realistic. But the scale of model railway buildings actually scales quite well with Planet Coaster buildings. So I know a lot of Planet Coaster YouTubers, I think Mike Sheets and Max Bandit have both said that they use model railway scenery as muses in the past. So that's, a little trick, a little top tip for the three of you that actually play this game, that watch these videos. There's a top tip. Model railway scenery, and any kind of scale model really, is a good thing to look at when looking at references when building buildings in Planet Coaster. So, what are we doing now? I'm still building the station. What am I doing in real life? Well, I'm glad you asked, one person out there. I'm currently hiding from the world in my office. It's Halloween. It's the 31st of October. So I'm just decided I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to kick back. I've got my nice glass of Fanta Zero. Not even a glass, it's just in the can. That's how lazy I am. I'm just hiding from the world. Kids are around my neighborhood knocking on the door. I'm just going to pretend I'm not in, which is probably not a very good strategy because all the lights are very obviously on, and Hurricane the cat is probably sitting on the windowsill like he likes to do, so they can all see that there is clearly... And all the kids are like, oh, there's a really cute cat there, and that's not helping. So, yeah, I'm just hiding from the world, pretending I can't hear anything, and hopefully my house doesn't get egged. That's my life right now. I mean, you guys probably can't relate to this too much, because I think we are now in 2023 in terms of, the when this episode actually comes out. I think this is episode 10. This is the big, oh my goodness, this is big episode X. And I feel like I've squandered this is not a very exciting episode, but I do think next episode, here I am now, immediately saying, don't worry guys, I know this is really bad, but next episode, trust me guys, it's going to be great. But I'm going to open YouTube Studio, just check, but I think we are on episode, for me, I've just published episode 4. I've just done episode 4. Did quite well. It's got 13,500 views, which is good for Planet Coaster content on this channel. And episode 9 is the latest one I've got, ready to go. Obviously, I've got to do the preceding episodes 8, 7, 6, 5. But, I'm just saying that's where I am. But for you guys, obviously, it's the future. So what's it like? How are the flying cars these days? Anyway, I mean, is KSP 2 nearly out? I've no idea. I can't be bothered to do the maths to figure this all out, to be honest. But yeah, next episode is going to be cool. I'm going to be building a roller coaster, and it's a much smaller scope roller coaster than the past 3 that I've already built. So the flying coaster, the wooden coaster, and the Intamin sit down. I can't remember. It's got a really weird model name, the Intamin. It's I think I called it the Intamin Blitz when I built it, but it's not an Intamin Blitz. It's just an inverted sit-down Intamin coaster, something like that. It's not in the same scale of those. It's actually a junior coaster designed for families, so it's very small in terms of the layout. But I think there was just something really satisfying about how the layout itself, came together, I suppose. It sits on the really small spit of land between that, I think it's called the Helion ring or the Gravitron ring, you know what I mean, the loop-de-loop thing. It sits on the patch of grass behind that. So really, really small footprint, and I think I managed to get it to work really well. And I don't know why I'm still talking about it, because that's going to be a next episode, so make sure you get hyped, make sure you like the video, guys, make sure you're subscribed, etc., etc., and you can watch an episode that's better than this one, probably. What am I doing right now? I'm still building the train station. Is there anything in particular I think I need to talk about? I don't think there is. As you can see, I'm just building a very rustic brick building. So, now that has been established, what else is there to talk about? I guess there's the my real life that's happening. I was at the bike shop today. The bicycle repair shop, I should say. For those that follow my second channel, all 3 of you, in fact, actually, maybe that's a thing I could talk about quickly before I get onto the bike thing, is that I don't even know if this video is on my main channel anymore. Like, I have noticed a very, very appreciable drop in views for all my videos on my main channel at the time when I started posting Planet Coaster content on this channel. Like, my Space This Week videos were pulling regularly 70 to 120,000 views. The moment I started posting Planet Coaster, that dropped to like 50,000, which I know, okay, that's still quite a lot for a lot of people, but for me, it's like, that's quite bad numbers, especially because I work with sponsors that want a certain number of views, and it's like, this is like quite treacherous for my channel's health. So I posted a video today, Space This Week, 31st October, like you guys, I said already, this is Halloween, and I'm just watching the analytics. I'm hoping I've just been on a weird bad streak, but it is looking like the views are like permanently starting to tank because of the existence of Planet Coaster on this channel, because of the fact that at the end of the day, people don't watch this series. And that's not, I don't want it to sound like I'm complaining or having a go at viewers of the channel, because this is very, very far removed from most of the videos that I post on this channel. Most of the videos are obviously Kerbal Space Program and Space News, so I get that people might not be interested in roller coaster content, because where's the crossover there? So I'm not having a go, I'm not angry or anything, I'm just a little bit, disappointed, I suppose, that YouTube's algorithm is sort of forcing me to reconsider even publishing this episode and this the broader series. But maybe I could put it on my second channel. My second channel is like the dump channel, where I just put anything I fancy. I don't have to think about analytics or monetization or sponsors. I just stick whatever I want on there. I think the most viewed video on that channel is a copyrighted video. Like it was the KSP slander video, and I can't even make money off that video because it got copyright claimed by the record label that owns the song, which I feel like is a bit unfair, because like the video is not really about the song, it's about the content of the video. I just put the song on top of it. I still think that, like, okay, I get that the artist is entitled to some monetary earnings, but really they want 100% of the earnings. Whatever. I say this is like a thing unique to my second channel, but it's not. My main channel's most viewed video is a copyrighted video. It's copyrighted by the record label that owns Two Steps from Hell. So yeah, I guess that's just a contention I've always had. I get that record labels should get some money from, videos that use copyrighted music. But should they get all of the money? Really? Is the KSP slander video being viewed because of the song, or is it being viewed because of the memes? I feel like if I took this to court, I would probably win, because, look, it's not a competitive... If people want to listen to that song, they're not coming to Matt Lowne 2 Kerbal Space Program slander. They're just going to go click on the guy's Vivo. So why is this copyright? So that's where I am right now. Anyway, I mentioned, yes, about my second channel, back to the point. I don't know if this series is going to be migrated to the second channel, honestly, because I really don't want to destroy my internet career right before Kerbal Space Program 2 comes out, which is the biggest thing ever to happen to me. We got in terms of big things that are happening at the moment in my life, we've got the Starship Orbital Test Flight, which maybe has happened for you guys. Wishful thinking, maybe. There's that, and there's the Kerbal Space Program 2 release. And that's kind of it. So it's I remember I used to make end of year montages for Kerbal Space Program content, because that was the only content I used to publish at one point. And at the end of every montage, I would say, here's to the next year. So for the 2018 montage, I would say, here's to 2019. And the 2019 montage, I was like, here's to 2020. And we all know how that ended up. So and every time I edited the video and added that little splash cut, I'm like, oh, this is going to be the year though where people lose interest. And I've been thinking that ever since the 2016 montage. So I was like, oh, 2017, people really going to still be interested in Kerbal Space Program? Really? But obviously, here we are, 2022. I'm still making KSP content. I'm still making stuff for this channel, and you guys seem to still be enjoying it. So thank you for sticking with me this long. What am I doing? I should probably look at the screen for once in a while. Am I doing anything? Is there anything here that I need to talk about? I guess I built those fake benches, right? Benches in Planet Coaster are weird. You can only place them on paths. And obviously, the platform for the station... Well, first of all, the station for the steam train in Planet Coaster is not a traditional station. It's just a regular roller coaster style loading dock, and I wanted to have a platform and all of that, so I built this big extensive platform to make it look like a traditional railway station. But then I couldn't place benches because there's no paths here, so I kind of built a fake bench out of planks and iron pieces, etc. And then here I'm building a crossing point, because I didn't really know how to elegantly make a crossing for the train tracks. In a real station, there'll be a pedestrian bridge with stairs or a ramp for disabled users that takes guests over the track and then down to the other side of the other platform, basically. But in this case, there only needs to be one platform, right? There's just a single train, goes in one direction. There's no real need for guests to get to the other side, but it would be weird for there to not be another platform on the other side of the railway track. So I decided to make a bare bones crossing point. I just decided to lay some planks on the ground as a way for guests to easily cross the tracks safely. I mean, the steam train runs at such a low speed that it's not going to be dangerous or anything like that. So yeah, I think I quite like how it turned out. Those plank pieces, sleepers on the railway track that allow guests to cross over safely. I'm really happy with how it turned out, because I've always struggled to build elegant railway crossings. I usually use ladder pieces or steep stairs and fences to construct some sort of gantry, and it always looks super sketchy. So I think this is probably how I'm going to carry on building railway crossings in Planet Coaster now, if I ever play this game again. I haven't touched this game since finishing the park, and I can't see myself doing it again anytime soon. If I were to play Planet Coaster again, I'd probably build a very space themed thing to appeal to my wider audience. Maybe just redesign Starbase in Planet Coaster or something like that. I don't know. Oh, but yes, I just remembered. I realized I mentioned the fact that I took my bicycle to the bike repair shop. So I could talk about that now. Here I am placing some shrubbery, by the way. Adventure Woods, I love it how the theme is just woods, because I could just plant trees and call it a day in terms of theming. Anyway, yes, before I get on too much of a tangent there, I took my bike down to the bike repair shop, and I said, look, I think the bottom bracket is a bit broken, because I can just take the crank arms and just shake them, and the whole pedal system apparatus can move. I'm trying to put this into terms that people that don't ride bikes can understand. Hopefully I don't sound too patronizing. But yeah, he looked at us yeah, the bottom bracket needs replacing. So I was like, okay, fine. we'll replace the bottom bracket. But to rewind the story of this bike, if you watch my second channel, which is how I got onto that massive tangent about analytics and all that depressing stuff, if you've been watching my second channel, the biking videos, I started out on a fairly cheap Halfords mountain bike. So Halfords is a store in the UK. It's like a department store, but it's like automotive biking department store. So it's not quite as bad as like Walmart, but it's still like very budget oriented. And I bought this bike for £500, 500 British pounds, which I thought at the time, this is more money than anyone could ever possibly spend on a bicycle. This is fine. This is going to get me some mountain biking. It's the only bike I ever need, etc., etc. We don't know how the story ends. And it turns out £500 is actually very cheap for a mountain bike. And I learned very quickly. I took it out on some trails, and I was like, I'm going to die if I carry on using this bike, because, yeah, it's good, but I just think that my riding is starting to outgrow this bike. So I've since bought a couple of proper trail bikes, and I've now got this mountain bike that I've sort of turned into a commuter bike. So I now cycle to work every day on this bike. So I've fitted slicker tires to it. I've added a cargo rack to the back. It's great. But that doesn't change the fact that it is ultimately a budget bike with budget parts. And I'm riding it every day of the week, rain or shine. So I'm riding it through storms. I sometimes come home and I'm just drenched. I've bought an industrial shoe dryer, so I put my shoes on this drying machine. So like I'm riding it whatever the weather. It's going through some pretty brutal conditions. So I mentioned this to the bike shop. I was like, when you replace the bottom bracket, just have a little look at the bike and just tell me, is it worth me carrying on throwing money at this bike when things go wrong? Or should I buy a dedicated, like an expensive, but like a purpose-designed commuter bike? So one that actually has very good components that are designed for commuting every single day, that can hold up to harsh weather. Is it worth doing that? Because the guy said, like, look, Voodoo bikes, the brand I got was Voodoo. It's a Voodoo Izan 29er. And he said Voodoo bikes are very good. They're good bikes for the money, for what you pay for, but they're designed to be ridden every other weekend, not every single day of the week, no matter rain or shine. And that's kind of that's why the components are wearing out for me. So I'm sort of torn. Do I carry on riding this bike, and as components fail and wear out, I replace it with more expensive parts and get the bike better? Or do I just, cut my losses, retire the bike, and just buy a bike with good parts, good geometry, and everything's good from the ground up, and then I kind of go from there? And I'm very torn. One thing I'm thinking about is getting like a Canyon bike with like a belt drive train that's got an internal hub gearbox, so it's all indestructible. Basically, it's perfect for commuting. But I don't know. There's just something about this bike that I commute on now. It's the bike that kind of got me into biking and exercise. I remember like a big wake up call for me was in 2020. I met up with my parents in a town in South Devon, and I can't remember which town, but it's a town in South Devon. I met up with them. They came on a holiday, and I live in Devon, so whatever. And we walked up a hill, and at the top of the hill, I just stand there and just breathing. I was so out of breath, and like my chest hurt, and I was like, oh my God, I'm 26. I shouldn't be in so much agony from walking up a hill. So I'm like, I need to do some exercise. So I bought this Voodoo bike to do exercise and get my fitness up, and I did. I got my fitness up. I feel healthier than I have in a very, very long time, and it's great. So this bike, in a way, saved my life, and I unlocked a sport. Like I realized I really, really love cycling, and I really it's added a lot of happiness to my life, and I owe it all to this bike here. So I quite like the fact that I still have this bike serving in my fleet of bicycles and like getting me to work every day for free, and like, continuing to build my fitness up just through using it as a commuting vehicle. And again, just that relationship that this was the bike that got me into exercising properly. And so I kind of don't want to say goodbye. I don't want to retire it because of that. So I have a big sentimental attachment. That's what I've been trying to say this entire however many minutes this real ramble has gone on for. But yeah, do you guys get where I'm coming from? Am I just rambling into a void and no one empathizes with this? I'd like to think that it makes sense. Maybe to like people that ride bikes. You probably have that bike in your garage or shed or whatever, wherever it is you keep your bikes. There's that one bike where you're like, I feel I have a strong emotional connection to this bike. And for me, it's my Voodoo. It's ironically my cheapest bike. I've got some very expensive bikes now. Well, I don't say very expensive. I've got some expensive bikes. Like my latest purchase was a trail bike. It's a carbon fiber, full suspension bike. It was north of £4,000. It was a lot of money. I can say that. I don't feel ashamed to say that to you guys, because you guys are my friends. You know, the three of you watching. I'm just saying for perspective that, like, you know, the amount of money this Voodoo cost was very, very negligible compared to like the cost of other bikes I've bought, basically. But I don't know, if my house burned down and I lost everything, the expensive bikes, yeah, I'd be annoyed because I've lost that money. But the one I would feel the most sad about, I think, would be that Voodoo, that cheap little department store bike, that means commuter. That would be the one that stings. And that's why I feel like a bit of a sentimental attachment. Like, I don't really want to ditch it as a commuting vehicle, because I don't know, it's the bike. It's an old friend. It's an old friend, that bike. An old friend from 2021. So not that old. But yeah. Maybe I'm going to move on from this tangent in a second now. But maybe in some of that made sense to you guys. I don't know. Anyway, I didn't talk deep inhalation. I didn't talk about any of the station completion. I just did. But yeah, the first station is completed. Now we're building the second station. Do you know what I was about to say? I was about to say the second space station, because I'm so used to just saying space before the word station. So I'm like, space station. So now it's like, again, Planet Coaster allows you to train my vocal cords and speech center. Very tenuous excuse. Anyway, yeah, we're building the second station here. And as mentioned at the beginning of this commentary, we don't finish it. It's going to be unfinished. Most of it is done, to be fair. But there's a few little bells and whistles that need to be added. And just the building, when I finish it in this episode, it's very sterile. It's just a big box without any real finishes or personality. And there's no queue line or signages. It's just a very... I don't want to say placeholder, because it does end up being the final building, but I just add more stuff to it. But it just leaves a lot to be desired. And I feel like I say that phrase exactly a lot in Adventure Woods, but I'm just saying it leaves a lot to be desired and a lot needs to be done. But as a it's a framework. It's a starting point. It's a building block. It's a base. It's a baseline. It's a baseline for great things to come, I suppose. So this is... I'm not going to use this disgusting default green color. I think the muse I went with here... In fact, I didn't use a single muse at all. I just had an image in my head that I tried to emulate, and I don't know how well I did. But I went with kind of a more Western style. I don't want to say Western. I mean kind of a Western, a Wild West USA station, you know, from Red Dead Redemption was probably a subconscious muse. Yeah, that's kind of the station I was going with. So more of a wooden shack appearance. I don't know, but one thing I did carry over from the previous station we built was that crossing point idea, where I just have a ramp down to ground level and then just lay some beams out across the rail, and that allows guests to cross the tracks without, you know, being hindered too much. I haven't got to go up any stairs. And this is easy disabled access as well. Like, I feel like a wheelchair could easily clamber over those rails when the ground is raised, like these pillars raise it too. I'm flagging. I'm definitely flagging. I can see the end in sight. So is there anything else to talk about whilst I'm still lucid? I'm just trying to think. Is there anything... I'm now like closing my eyes and really gritting my teeth. Is there anything I did in this video? I'm trying to think back to the actual moment in reality where I built this for the first time, and I don't recall anything significant happening. So what am I going to talk about for the next, or nearly, there's the 29-minute mark. We've got 2 minutes left to talk about things. Oh, I know. The Arctic Monkeys album, The Car, came out quite recently. And I've been really excited for this album for a long time, because... I'm a big fan of the Arctic Monkeys, one of my favourite bands of all time. And when I was building Neptune Park, the album Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino came out. And I kind of built that park with that album playing in the background. It was like when I listen to that album now, I just think of me building things in Neptune Park. It's a nice nostalgic connection, so to speak. And they've just released The Car, their new album. and it's very much in a similar vein in terms of the sound. It sounds very similar to the sound of Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino. For those that aren't familiar with the Arctic Monkeys, they started out as an indie rock band. They started out with the album Beneath the Boardwalk that was shared around schools when I was a school child myself, so I was familiar with that album. And then they released Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not. I think that's the name of their first album. But very much indie rock, guitars, drums. Great band. And then Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino came around. It was very much a complete shift in terms of the music they produced. It was very much like, I think they call it lounge pop or something. It's basically slow melodies, piano is the primary instrument. And I listened to it for the first time and I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know how I feel about this. But on subsequent re-listenings again and again to that album, it really, really grew on me. And now Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino is probably one of my favourite albums of all time. I really, really like it a lot. And The Car just came out. And I just don't really know how to feel about it. Like for me, Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, whilst it was a slow grower, it took a while for me to appreciate it, there were a couple of bangers on that track. On 4 stars out of 5 or 4 out of 5, whatever it's called. And obviously the titular Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino song that inspired me to make a whole KSP series, Minimalist Base Hotel and Casino. Those two songs, absolute bangers. And there's a couple of other really good songs like The World's First Ever Monster Truck Front Flip. I think that was the name of the song. Bit of a mouthful, I know. But yeah, there were some bangers on that album. But this one, nothing really sticks out hugely. I really like Body Paint and I really like Sculptures of Anything Goes. But I don't know, it's just, I like to think it's going to get better as I listen to it. But for me, it's like, it's like DLC for Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, and it doesn't quite hit that mark. But that's just where I am right now in my mental state. Maybe when I do the commentary for next episode, there's the end screen. I'll have more to say after I've listened to it a few more times. But for now, that's the end of the episode there. Thank you so much for watching. There's some videos on screen and the link to subscribe and join my Patreon and stuff like that. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and goodbye.